Herb Jones is an absolute monster in the best way possible, and the New Orleans Pelicans look sharp coming out of the All-Star break. Let's take a moment to appreciate Herb and look at how well the Pelicans executed in the big win over the Houston Rockets. It's a Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Friday, day after the Pelicans just whip the Houston Rockets 127-105. Really doesn't state how not close the game was. We're going to talk about this game because Herb Jones was fantastic. Point Zion was a thing. The shot chart was efficient. We're going to break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about the team. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday. Join the 10,000 of y'all that are already on YouTube. That's for almost 10,000. That's awesome. It's going to be a fun sprint to the end of the year. We're going to be covering it all. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So this game was fun, wasn't it? Whether we were just like missing basketball or whatever it was, this was, and I'm trying to find a tweet on my phone here, really, really fun. There was just a lot of dunks. It was fast paced at times. You just saw the Pelicans execute really well. Like all of this was just like a fun basketball game to be at. Like this is the type of game that reminds you that like going to games live, that no matter what, basketball is fun. And I'm just kind of, I don't know, feeling kind of like flying high after a win like that. But it was also fun because Herb Jones, y'all, he was a monster in this game. He just looked fantastic. Herb Jones is about as consistent of a player for New Orleans and has just elevated his game this season. Almost 37 minutes of action here, 17 points on 6 of 9 shooting. The efficiency there is wild, right? Like that's Zion Williamson kind of numbers. That's almost 2 points per shot attempt. That's really good. And he only went to the line 3 times, which is usually how you make that up, except he just basically couldn't miss. 6 of 9 is great. He's 3 of 5 from deep, right? But the offense has been good, and we talked about it in yesterday's episode of Locked On Pelicans. If you're an everydayer, you know I love the three-point shooting, 60% there. Hitting those threes, being really consistent with that is fantastic. But it's the 4 assists. It's the 5 rebounds, the contributing in other areas, sprinting down the court for fast break opportunities, but also, oh my goodness, right? The defense. If he doesn't make one of the all-defensive teams, and it should be first team all-defense, not second team, CJ McCollum said it after the game, someone needs to be fired if he doesn't make that team. Zion Williamson just said, like, what else are you supposed to do? Because I don't know if you've seen a better defensive performance in a while. He had 7 steals in this game. 7 steals. That is a franchise that becomes the 4th player in franchise history to notch 7+ steals in a game. Chris Paul did it 10 times. Bonzi Well did it 1 time. And DeMarcus Cousins did it 1 time. That's an impressive list, especially the Chris Paul part of that, right? But 7 steals. And it just fueled New Orleans in this. That's about as easy of a way to get offense as possible, right? Steals get you usually in fast break opportunities, which means you're scoring in the paint more often than not. New Orleans killed the Houston Rockets. We'll get more to this in the next segment here. 62-40 in terms of points in the paint. They also got out and run a ton. 29 of their 127 points were in the fast break. That's about as efficient of an offense that you can get. And here's this, right? The Houston Rockets defense is good. They were 5th best going into this game. Fifth best, right? They give up on average 112.7 points per game. You put up 127, 15 points more than their average, right? Just punished that defense by getting out in fast break and running. You can make a very good defense look terrible when you can get out and get 29 fast break points. And it's largely because of Herb Jones just being a monster. There was a really cool moment in the first quarter where he had a steal. I think he got a bucket from Zion on a fast break and then kind of just hustled for rebounds and grabbed some things that he shouldn't and didn't end up getting the rebound. The ball goes out of bounds and the Houston Rockets retain possession. But after that, and at seeing the hustle from him there, about half the Smoothie King Center crowd stood up and just gave Herb Jones a standing ovation. I thought this is one of the coolest moments we have seen this season from the fans. And y'all who were there and did that, or if you were watching at home on TV and you're like, look at this freaking dude be awesome. If you posted on Twitter, on social media, anyone saying or anywhere saying anything after what he did out there, good for you. Because that was such an impressive stretch that he deserves the credit, the accolades, the love for that sort of thing. And here's the thing, when people are like, New Orleans isn't a basketball city and all of this stuff, again, he had a stretch where he scored 2 points, that's it. And you still were giving him a standing ovation because you appreciated the little things that he was doing, the hustle that he was doing, right? To get 9,000 people standing up cheering for him after that shows they understand that they appreciate the work that he's put it in and how special of a player he is like that. And that's not even talking the offense, which has grown so much this year. That's a really cool moment and something this fan base should be incredibly proud of, that people recognize that and wanted to like literally stand and cheer for him when the Houston Rockets retained possession of the ball. And it was the right thing to do. I thought that's one of the, I don't know, there's a moment there where it like hit me of how awesome that was and how special that was and how special the play was out there on the court. That was just fantastic. Look, give Herb Jones a lot of the credit, but I'm giving y'all a ton of credit for appreciating that sort of thing, right? That was really cool. That was really cool. He was awesome in this game. He's a plus 36 on the night, I think. Let me find his numbers here. Plus 36, right? Like he was just killing him when he was out there on the court. New Orleans was just killing it in general. They looked sharp, right? Like they looked sharp, ready to execute, ready to perform, had a game plan, knew what to do. And again, speaks to how good this defense is and why I've been saying for a while this team is good, even if they're not reaching their potential. And we can have worries about them in the playoffs, but this team is good and they just ripped apart the fifth best defense. That was awesome. Let's talk more about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? Well, you can get that with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new, on-trend favorites that will work for you. You just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. Then you order boxes when and how you want, no subscription required. They're going to send you 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. Keep what works, send back the rest. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. And Stitch Fix makes it so easy. I don't like to shop. I know there's probably a lot of y'all that don't like to shop either. So this is going to save you time and effort, and you're going to get outfits that make you look good and feel really good. So style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know, appreciating Herb Jones. We're going to look at the offense around Point Zion coming up right here. Now for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Yeah, that was a fun game. Like, that was just a fun game to me. Sometimes you just want to go out and like enjoy a basketball game. And when things just got kind of exciting, right? Like Jonas Valanciunas was underrated in this game. He looked awesome. He went out and did his thing, and they were dunking the ball. They were kind of fired up. I want to talk on that here for a minute here. Like, this team clearly does not like the Houston Rockets. Like, they were into this game in a way that they aren't always, right? We've talked a lot about this on the show. They don't come out with the appropriate energy, right? Like, there's no fire in them. You're kind of lacking some of the passion in a sense. Not against this Houston Rockets team. They're just like, screw them dudes, basically, right? I don't know whether it's Dylan Brooks or some of the other guys here, but you saw Jonas Valanciunas really not like Alperen Şengün. After he had a dunk on him, he spread his arms and kind of soared away because he really wanted to stick it to that guy, right? You saw Zion with the dunk doing the too small thing, the too short thing. Like, they clearly had some sort of bad blood and wanted to stick it to the Houston Rockets team, and I love that. Right? I want you to go out and bury teams and hate them. And that was really cool to see. And I very much enjoyed them absolutely destroying this, again, the 5th best defense in the league. And they crushed them here. It's just a fun game. Sometimes basketball can just be like, I enjoyed being at the arena and we don't need to overthink it. That's not a shot at JJ Redick, but it kind of is too sometimes. If you get that, you get that. Anyway. So let's look at this, right? And I'm going to preface this segment with one thing, because I know some of you are going to take it this way, and I don't actually mean it that way, right? Brandon Ingram didn't play in this game. They're not a better team without Brandon Ingram. Let's get that right out of the way. They are not a better team without Brandon Ingram, but we're going to look at some things that kind of point that way based on things that I have been saying. They are not a better team. I'm going to look right in the camera here. They are not a better team without Brandon Ingram. Okay. That said, they played some like real efficient offense tonight. Like some of the best we've seen from them in a while. The way they were moving the ball, the way things were just kind of coming easy to them on everything they wanted to do, right? Look at some of the numbers here. They had 50 makes in this game, 35 assists on 50 makes. So 15 buckets were unassisted. That's a really, really strong number right there. They took 41 threes, shot at a 39% rate. Their average this season is like 32 per game. I'll pull the numbers up so we can kind of look at that and compare it, as my internet is going to be fast enough for it. They take 32.1 threes per game. That's 23rd in the league. They took 41 in this game. The starting lineup with Trey Murphy in place of Brandon Ingram took 17 threes, right? Herb took 5, Trey took 10, CJ took 10, Jonas took 2, Zion didn't take any. The court was spaced. Zion, had a very efficient game, 27 points here, 9 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. He looked good. He had room to operate, particularly at the start of the third quarter. So they were running their offense through Zion. This was the Point Zion offense, the Zion-centric offense. And in the first half of this game, they were trying to take that away, right? They did what teams do. You throw bodies in his way and you try and limit him. I think he had 10, 12 points at halftime. The numbers haven't updated for me yet, but he had 5 or 6 assists. So he was passing the ball. And this is what I've always said, right? You need shooters on the court to make the opponent pay for double or triple teaming Zion. When Herb Jones is going to shoot 60% from 3 or 41% on the season, that number will go up now. You do that, right? When Trey takes 10 threes, even if he's not making them, that's a threat and something you need to account for. When CJ goes 4 of 10, 40% is a great number from 3. That makes teams pay. When you leave Jonas Valanciunas out there on the perimeter and he's capable of taking and making wide open threes, you're going to get beat. You need shooters out there on the court to make teams pay for the way they defend Zion Williamson. Look, Brandon was a good player. They're not better without him. However, you don't usually see 17 three-point attempts from the starting unit because that's just not how he plays, right? For all of those games where he goes 8 of 11 from 3, he'll take 2 threes in the next game and it mucks up your spacing and it's just not a proper game plan, right? That's not going to burn teams. They want Brandon Ingram taking some of those mid-range shots that he takes because even though he's good at them, those are a low percentage shot. And if coaches are game planning against the numbers, which is what you do, that's how you end up with a poor shot chart. If you look at their shot chart in this game, it's hyper efficient. You can decide you hate this style of ball, 3s in at the rim, and that's it. That's fine. I don't care. That's how you win in today's NBA. They took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots that weren't in the paint or from three. It's a beautiful shot chart here. And when you're playing a Houston Rockets team that kind of plays that hyper-efficient style of basketball, they only took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots that were not in the paint or from three. You've got to keep up with that in a sense. And the Pelicans did. And it's that Zion-centric offense where you're giving him space. When he finally had space because they were burning you in the first half by making threes, burning the Houston Rockets the first half, he just went out and scored like 8 straight points right away in the third quarter and kind of lit that team up. And all of a sudden, the Pelicans really pulled away very quickly, right? They won the third quarter 38-29. They ran away with it. Same thing at the end of the first half, right? They won that quarter 32-23 because they were playing efficient basketball, and that's how you're going to win very many games in the NBA. And they did it here. Now, this is a one-game thing against a Houston Rockets team that is terrible on the road and has really struggled. And it's kind of like fallen off a cliff a little bit after being competitive earlier on in the year. They've really struggled now. So I don't want to read too much into this, right? They're 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 1-5 going into this game. So they haven't played particularly great. After a very good start to the year, they have very much struggled. So you don't want to read too much into a one-game sample size, but you see that efficiency and look at what they did to the fifth best defense. There's something there with that, right? They looked sharp. They had the right game plan here. When Zion was taken away, okay, that means that you're going to have a guy like Jonas Valanciunas one-on-one with Alperen Şengün, and I like Şengün a lot, liked him going into the draft, but he can't handle Jonas, and Jonas had 17 and 10 at halftime. Just punish them, because if you're going to defend Zion, he's got some room to work. So they did that, right? You're going to throw 2 at Zion. Well, Herb's going to be open, and Herb is making teams pay. Throw 2 at Zion. CJ might be open, okay? He's going to take his shots. He did. All of those guys were hitting things, right? You even had Jose Alvarado in this one, hitting shots, doing his job because of the attention paid to Zion. He was 2 of 5. Off the bench, Najee Marshall was 2 of 4. Jordan Hawkins, we'll get more on him in the next segment here, was 1 of 5. But they were taking threes. They were making the threes because of the court gravity from Zion. This is why me and others have been saying, I'd like to see more Point Zion. JJ Redick was on his Old Man in the 3 podcast being like, I want to see more of this because he kills teams. It's a court gravity thing, and Zion is a good passer. It was on one of those plays to Herb Jones. I think it was during that stretch where he had... where they gave him the standing ovation. They got the steal. Zion's going down the court, looking right at the rim, and I'm there with a buddy of mine, and I'm pointing, like, Herb is open, and I'm like, Zion's going to miss him on this fast break. Zion will probably still score on the layup or maybe miss it, and they're going to kind of squander this fast break opportunity. And Zion then all of a sudden dishes a pass right to Herb, who then scores the easy bucket. I don't know how he saw Herb, but he just knew he was there. Zion is capable of making these reads, making these plays. He's a very willing and good passer. There are also moments where I think he forces things a little bit too much, does the Thanos, like, I'll do it myself kind of thing, and then goes and does that. That's fine, too, because he's got to get his. But when you have moments like that, you're like, oh, this is how this team can be very scary. I don't know. The way they've been playing, I worry about them in the playoffs. I've said that. You play like this, I'm not worried about you in the playoffs, and no team's going to want to play you, and you might upset someone in the first round that's not expecting it when you get a type of game like this, right? You had Herb Jones go 17 points on 9 shot attempts. Jonas Valanciunas had 20 points, 14 rebounds, by the way, and 3 assists on 12 field goal attempts, right? Zion, 27 points on 21 shot attempts. He only got to the line 4 times. Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins combined for 3 of 15, right? 3 of 15. And they still put up 127 points on the 5th best defense in the league. It was the starters doing the work in this one. If you look at the plus minus, that's been the concern, right? The bench usually has a higher one. Jose comes in, Najee comes in, and they elevate this team. Not in this game. Not in this game. It was Herb Jones, Zion Williamson leading that starting unit, and it worked really well. CJ playing perfectly. He was the leading scorer for the team, right? 28 points. Hyper-efficient shot selection. He had 6 assists. Herb had 4 assists. Jonas had 3 assists. Zion had 9 assists. Trey had 1, right? Like, everyone was sharing the ball. I'm not trying to say this is an indictment on Brandon Ingram. Again, they are better with him than they are not. But if he can fit into an offense like this with the skill set and the shot making that he has and the playmaking too, that's how this team becomes unstoppable. That's how this team makes me on this show go, they're going to be a problem in the playoffs. This was a preview, a peek of what they're capable of doing. Let's see if they can continue doing that going forward. Brandon Ingram's out with illness. He might be playing. The Pelicans are on a back-to-back against the Miami Heat. We'll see if he is and he can kind of fit in and play this style. Watch out, NBA, because this team's real good. You take away Zion, and now you got to deal with BI with more space and taking smart shots. Sign me up for that. So coming up next, let's look at guys like Jonas Valanciunas. I want to look at Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins. Even though they didn't shoot well, I thought they played well. And a couple of transaction notes that I should mention for y'all. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about eBay Motors because our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, everywhere we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. You've got Keontae George. George is now the Utah starting point guard again, replacing Chris Dunn. He has an efficiency issue, but the Jazz should allow him plenty of opportunities. Trey Mann is also getting minutes. LaMelo Ball's status is still up in the air, so Mann needs to be grabbed in fantasy leagues as the Hornets point guard. So Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. I work on all my cars. You want your parts to fit. I've been there before where order a part, take the other part off, put the new one on, can't close the hood. It's what I get for not going to eBay Motors, because with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. And that's why I get all of my parts from eBay Motors for all of my vehicles. They literally have everything. So whether you're looking for brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever it needs, eBay Motors has it. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, my favorite part, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. And at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So keep your vehicle alive over at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. Do me a favor, one favor, it takes 30 seconds. Text a friend about the show. Text a friend the link to this show, whether you're listening to it on a podcast or watching it on YouTube. Get them to just listen to the first segment about how awesome Herb Jones was. It helps keep the show free and 5 days a week for y'all. Become an everydayer, subscribe, and comment down below on YouTube if you want as well. This was a fun game. Also, it was really fun being back at the Smoothie King Center after the break, week off from basketball here. And all the people that came up and said, like, I'm an everydayer. If you see me at the arena, like, don't be a stranger if you want to say hi. If you just want a high five, one dude really wanted that at the game. Whatever it is, come say hi. I'm happy to talk with y'all or just say, like, thank you for listening because it's awesome. We do this show for you. So let's continue to talk about the Pelicans' win over the Houston Rockets, 127-105, what I think is a very impressive win here. Like, thrilled with what we saw from the team in this game. I don't know. This game just made me happy. Maybe it was just not having Pelicans basketball for a week, but like, this was cool. Sometimes like you got to just take a moment and be like, that was fun. Saw a couple like personal friends of mine at the game. I was talking to them and they were like, oh yeah, like it's really cool to be here when they just throw down dunks and we have fun about this. And I'm like, it really is. This was just like a fun game. Winning's fun too, right? That's why I've been saying this team is good. Don't take this season for granted, even if I at times am very negative and don't think they're reaching their potential. Thought they reached their potential in this game. Jonas Valanciunas here, so as we talked about earlier, 20 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover. You know, I don't know if he's the long-term fit. Don't know if he's the long-term fit. Don't think he's the long-term fit. The Pelicans don't seem to think he's the long-term fit, but I said don't trade him for parts at the trade deadline because he's going to make your team better this season, right? If you make the conference finals, and you lose because of Jonas Valanciunas, I'm going to call that a real successful season and be thrilled. Thrilled. And he's the type of guy that can help you get there. is he going to be a liability at some point? Feels like it could be, but you can't be a liability in the playoffs if your team's not in the playoffs in the first place. And he was massive in this game, really going at Alperen Şengün, who's been a bit of a revelation for the Houston Rockets this season. But Şengün really struggled in this one, right? Just had no answer for Jonas Valanciunas whatsoever. Was getting frustrated, was fouling him. Jonas just kind of like ate that dude's lunch, it felt like here. You need a guy like that, right? Like they can probably win this game without Jonas Valanciunas, but imagine if Zion was struggling a little bit, or if Zion was out in this one. You need a guy like JV, and he's going to help you get where you need to be, which right now I'm just looking at as the playoffs and out of the play-in tournament. We'll figure everything else out from there, but if they do that, I think we're going to call it a successful season. Jonas Valanciunas will help make that happen. It was interesting to see Jordan Hawkins be the first sub in. Is that growth from head coach Willie Green, or just has to do with Brandon Ingram being out, right? Like you'd like to see Hawkins out there on the court with Zion. He subbed in for Zion. Okay, but it also then created a lineup with a CJ and shooters lineup that we saw a lot of earlier in the year. CJ, Jonas Valanciunas, one of Herb Jones or Dyson Daniels. In this case, Dyson's out, so it's Herb Jones. Then Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins, right? It gives CJ space to just basically spam pick and rolls with Jonas Valanciunas, attack the basket, spray the ball out to shooters, shoot an open three himself, and it gives Jonas Valanciunas space down low to just kick some butt, which he did in this game. That lineup works. I kind of like the idea of, okay, if BI's out, we need to give Zion his normal rest at 6 minutes before putting him back in with 2-3 minutes left. Well, let's just let CJ run the show and go to a lineup, a situation that worked. That I thought was a smart coaching decision from head coach Willie Green here. When you look at the plus minus, CJ was the second best here on this Pelicans team at plus 25 after the plus 36 from Herb Jones. Look, it was just a fun night. This was a fun night. Really good win. Really thrilled to see what the New Orleans Pelicans did here. So a couple of things. Let's look at a couple of quick transactions that worth noting. Don't think they truly are going to make any sort of impact here. And if they do, that means something has gone very, very wrong for the New Orleans Pelicans. So after signing Malcolm Hill to a 10-day contract, they then signed Jeremiah Robinson Earl to the 14th roster spot. They needed to fill that spot. You can then have one open roster spot, and that's that. But they needed to actually fill that. They signed Jeremiah Robinson Earl to that. We explain why. Basically, because of position of need, you don't have a ton of depth at the front court, the big man spot. He fits that. And if you're going to sign, the other option would have been signing Matt Ryan. But look, if you weren't playing Hawkins, would Matt Ryan get minutes? Probably not. So give those minutes to Hawkins. That's great. They then signed Malcolm Hill, who had been on a 10-day contract, to a two-way deal. Then sent him down to Birmingham to get some run. But I like that the Pelicans immediately filled that other two-way spot. They do a very good job of that by signing guys to those deals. Then they signed Jalen Crutcher, who had been on a two-way previously and was a guy New Orleans really liked going into the draft a couple of years ago, and then had a bad injury during a pre-draft workout in New Orleans. They signed him to a 10-day deal. I think it's just some added bench. And I think they also just really want to do right by that guy who had an injury that kind of derailed his career before it even started here in New Orleans. So they keep finding ways to kind of do right by him, which is something that I in general kind of like from the team. So those are some of the things that are going to affect kind of their day-to-day here. They also, according to, I think it was Michael Scotto on Twitter, have put Carlo Makovic on the G League Birmingham team. And I think that's an awesome thing to see as well, that he's getting will maybe get some run, get some minutes, kind of be in the Pelicans system, have them keep an eye on him a little bit more. So that was really cool to see. And there you go. Those are the transactions. Nothing that's really going to make like an impact. If Crutcher plays, that means you're blowing a team out or you're getting blown out. It's not a bad problem to have. I think there's other guys you can give those minutes to and things like that. So there you go. All right. Just great night. Let me know what you thought about the game. 2 games over the weekend. We'll probably do Monday's show, technically recorded on Sunday, live after the game, maybe from the court. I know a big group's going to be out there kind of having some fun. Maybe we'll have a little bit of fun as well. So that'll be really cool. So expect the live show Sunday after the game, like right after, a couple minutes after. We'll get going from live on the court in the Smoothie King Center is kind of the general plan here. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Be back with y'all Sunday night to hopefully recap two Pelicans wins. But we'll see then. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it. Bye.